Hello, my name is Edith Ayagafo. The treatment modality that I will be exploring today will be on virtual reality exposure therapy for PTSD. Virtual reality exposure therapy (VRET) is a new and forthcoming method of exposure therapy. It slowly exposes a patient to their trauma stimuli through a hyper-realistic environment. It mitigates stress and control negative symptoms. The history of VRET stems back to the implementation of exposure therapy, and the history is by Ivan Pavlov and John Watson, developed exposure therapy in the early 1900s. Its roots trace back to principle of Pavlov classic conditioning. In 1958, John Wolfe introduced systematic desensitization. In the year 1970, Stanley Richman developed exposure and response prevention while working with people experiencing obsession and compulsion disorder. Through the fairly recent expansion of an in vivo experience and imaginal exposure therapy into VRET, the client no longer relies on self-generated memories. Research concludes that the limitation of patient imagination and memories are overcome, avoidance is reduced, and the likelihood of emotional engagement is increased. Some of the key figures of VRET are Masnad, Ralph Lamson, and Skip Rizzo. Masnad pioneered and termed virtual reality therapy in the first known publication of an evaluation of PRET in 1994. Ralph Ramson later published a detailed explanation of the anatomical, medical, and therapeutic basis of VRET. Skip Rizzo validated the use of VRET for post-traumatic stress disorder. In a study he concluded in 2005 using virtual Iraq, a series of environments he created to target PTSD. Some of the key terms in VRET are exposure, trauma, avoidance behavior, and systematic desensitization. Exposure is the state of being exposed to contact with something. Trauma is a deeply distressed experience. Avoidance behavior can be defined as an action that a person takes to skip from difficult thoughts and feelings. And systematic desensitization is a technique in which relaxation training, anxiety hierarchy, and exposure are used to reduce one's sensitivity to situations he or she have dreads. According to DSM-5 criteria, some of the signs and symptoms for PTSD are recurrent, involuntary, and intrusive distressing memories of the traumatic event, recurrent distressing dream, and dissociative reactions. Additionally, other diagnoses that can benefit from VRET are phobia, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder (OCD), and generalized anxiety disorder. The case study that I will be elaborating on is Alice, a 50-year-old veteran from Afghanistan, has been experiencing PTSD symptoms for over 15 years. Alice became increasingly depressed and experienced difficulty in his employment. Alice experiences recurring nightmares from war. After a thorough assessment on his PTSD and comorbid symptoms, Alice received 7 graded sections to a VA war scenario. Following dissections, and systematic desensitization, he experienced a statistical reduction in reaction to his trauma stimuli and no longer met the criteria for PTSD. During the treatment for virtual reality exposure therapy, an individual is immersed in a computerized generated virtual environment either through the use of head-mounted display device or entry into a computer-automated room where images are present all around. This environment is specifically tailored to the ailments of the patient in order to help the person directly confront feared situations or locations that may not be safe to encounter in real life. Here is a worksheet that demonstrates how virtual reality exposure therapy works in practice. These video links depict how VRET is used to alleviate PTSD in individuals who were in combat. Mikle et al. 2017 conducted an evidence-based research on a comparative effectiveness study on VRET with military personnel who suffered from PTSD. 31% of those who received VRET experienced a substantial improvement in their clinical administered PTSD scale. In their evidence-based practice, 6 et al. 2014 suggested that VRET has many strengths and poses numerous advantages over other treatment modalities for PTSD when treating combat-related PTSD. The case of access mitigates the risk of physical harm and increases privacy. In this study, after VR, VRET, 75% no longer met the criteria for PTSD. Leclerc et al. 2014, in their evidence-based research, examined the changes in self-report of PTSD. The study concluded that the 28 subjects treated with VRET experienced significant reduction in PTSD after a neurophysiological testing. Here are some of the resources one could explore to get a deeper insight into VRET. Additionally, below is a link of the training website, resources, and certification that could help for VRET training. In conclusion, virtual reality exposure therapy is a hyper-realistic environment that can be programmed to help the person directly confront fear situations that may not be safe to encounter in real life. Although VRET has been proven to be useful for a plethora of mental disorders, is especially effective for treatment of PTSD. It allows for greater engagement and greater activity of traumatic memories. Here are some of the references. Here is a study guide for virtual reality exposure therapy for combat-related post-traumatic stress disorder by Rizzo et al. And thank you for watching.